Booty Butt Boy. Against All Odds. By Haiku Origami. When he wasn't on patrol, Booty kept to himself for the most part, always on the outskirts of society. In his apartment, an abandoned duplex on the Upper East Side, he managed to keep off the radar, if only that was the least of his worries. Day after day he'd grind to be accepted by the superhero community, but all they ever saw him as was just a kid. A kid who does their jobs in half the time. Rain poured outside as he sat in his living room eating Chinese takeout. Setting his chopsticks aside, he grabbed a fortune cookie and crushed it, revealing an encryption. Birds of a feather flocked together. On the back read the Playhouse Foundation. "That's not a fortune," he groaned, closing his palm into a fist. Crumbs sprinkled from his hand into a miniature black hole disk where he dispensed his trash. Turning to his monitor setup, it turned on automatically, and on the screen were swirling black and white stripes. Instantly he was caught in a trance, stuck, forced to obey. Popping up in the middle of the screen was the mask of a trickster. The channel flipped, showing a commercial from the Playhouse Foundation. A woman talked directly to Booty, walking backwards down a long path towards a castle. "Have you lost your marbles? So busy fighting crime that you can't keep up with the day-to-day? Well then, do I have a deal for you." Booty was lost, unable to find himself, a slave to her every word, that is, until his hollow HUD began to flicker. Bypassing transmission to Booty's lenses, his AI twin managed to block his vision. Snapping back to reality, he turned off the monitor and opened a vortex that sucked him in and brought him straight to the playhouse. Appearing on the dance floor, hypnotic flashes played on multiple screens with suggestive music playing. His HUD filled with distractions, he recited math equations, pushing past a dancing crowd. Climbing up the steps, he made his way over to the club owner's side. "Vars, is that how you address the host?" he said, nose pointing upwards. "Truly, boy, do better. Idiom and Mr. Hypnotic, bring 'em out or else I'll turn that frown upside down," Idiom jeered, stepping forward dressed to the T. "You rang," Booty replied, raising his wrist piece and aiming it at her. "Actions speak louder than words, you know. Dante, dear, why don't we show our guest a good time?" "Certainly, bouncer, show the kid why this is an adults-only club." Coming up and grabbing Booty's shoulder, Bouncer threw him down the stairs. Tumbling, Booty caught himself on a rail, spun off of it and sprang back into action. Sputtering to life, his jetpack propelled him forward to where he tackled Bouncer. Torso stretching beyond belief, the thug flexed and sent the kid flying in the opposite direction. Twirling midair, he cut off, lasers firing, drifting sideways. Grabbing onto an upper-level pillar, he ducked a ricocheting blast. Scanning the area, he identified multiple villains entering the mezzanine. On his display, he counted 5 known names: Kismet, Edge, Bouquet, Ton, Tremor, Oubliette, Even. Wow, that's quite the roster, Ms. Phrase. And for what little almy? Oh, sweet child, there are clouds on the horizon, and haven't you heard, when it rains it pours? A hand placed at the base of the pillar tremor vibrated it, causing absolute crumblage. Losing his footing, Booty fell. Activating his jetpack, he caught himself before crashing. Stepping forward, her arms raised, Bouquet called forth foliage beneath the playhouse. Vines sprouted, tearing panels off the walls, lashing at Booty, who navigated through turmoil. Wings snatched by a tendril, he was flung onto a lower level where Ton met him. Cracking his knuckles, the living boulder pressed the kid. Lasers flew as Ton approached, rocks chipping upon impact, but he kept coming. Fist hurling towards him, Booty fell into a portal, appearing behind Ton, deploying sentry orbs that provided suppressive fire. Twin initiate sculpt mode. Your hyperpack still needs time to repair itself. Are you sure you want to rush it?" "I don't have a choice," Booty shouted as Ton charged at him. Mechanical arms extended from his hyperpack. Plasma blades tipped the appendages, swinging in a steady motion. Ton tried to get close and paid the price. His right arm cut into pebbles. Pulling back, he touched the marble floor and regrew his arm there on the spot. From behind, Kismet did cartwheels to close the gap. Flipping over Ton, she engaged Booty, twirling jambia and slashing. Twin kept her blade occupied, at the same time clipping any sneaky weeds looking to snag booty. Flicking through settings on his wrist piece, he toggled an anti-gravity beam. Ton in his sights, he shot him square in his chest. The villain grabbed for a counter as he was being pulled into the air, tearing it from its position. Kismet backed off, allowing for Tremor to let loose. Stomping, he created a shockwave that turned the floor loose. Dropping down a level, our hero landed in the maw of a Venus fly trap. Lasers burst through the plant's lobes, forcing it to open up and spit booty out. Rising to his feet, he was face to face with Oubliette. "Ah, the Dimension Hopper," Booty greeted him. "Your abilities are indeed impressive, but even you're no match for my holographic duplication technique." Shimmering into focus, 6 copies of himself surrounded his enemy, then began to run in circles, abruptly breaking off into separate directions. The original hid in plain sight, shooting pool as Oubliette wrangled up his duplicates. Pixelating them, the villain snarled, running around looking for the real Booty. When finally, he laid his eyes on the genuine article, hitting the 8-ball into a corner pocket. "Took you long enough," Booty taunted, chalking his cue. "Oh, we're just getting started," Kismet announced, jumping Booty from above. Pinned to the ground, he wrestled her for her dagger. Beneath them, a portal opened, transporting them to a staircase dimension. Having been followed by Edge and Bouncer, things were starting to look sketchy. Kismet kneeled on top of Booty, her jambia plunging when she was electrocuted. Her body collapsed to the side, allowing Booty to get up. Bouncing off of stairs came Bouncer, zipping about at all angles. It was a game of dodgeball until Booty opened a black hole. Gulped up, the thug didn't stand a chance. As for his associates, well, they weren't too happy. "Royal City doesn't need any more saviors," Kismet snapped, raising her blade to her palm. Cutting herself, she attacked, her own blood trailing off her blade. She showed quickness, getting in her opponent's face before he could even react. Slicing sideways, she missed. Having ducked, Booty jumped out of the way to where he nearly ran into Edge. Juking left, he rolled as Edge went to cut him in half. Kismet didn't let up. Pushing off her feet, she flipped backwards to get ahead of her target. Edge spun around and lunged in at the same time as Kismet, resulting in Booty sidestepping, a dagger slicing glass. "You got in my way," Kismet said, her head lowered. "Your mistake." "Help me," Edge screamed as cracks started to form on her figure. Breaking, her voice became a phantom's cry, dissipating in the space between them. A tear strolled down the assassin's face, her grip on her dagger tightening as she engaged Booty again. On his hollow HUD, he noticed his jetpack was back in working order, so he took the liberty of enabling it. Rocketed forward, he tackled her into a staircase, knocking her out cold. Throwing down a disc, he exited the pocket dimension, re-entering the playhouse. "Tell me, you didn't really think you guys could take me?" "You cocky rascal, I'll show ya," Tremor shouted, grabbing Booty by his arm. "It's not so fun when the rabbit's got the gun, is it, boy?" Idiom slicked, walking up slowly. Mr. Hypnotic was beside her, his pendulum swinging on a chain before Booty's eyes. He tried to close them but caught a glimpse of the dreaded device. All he remembered before losing consciousness was the villain's twisted smirks. Coming to, he was roped to an office chair, his hyperpack on the table, and the room was empty. There was a glass one way on his side, he suspected, so he assumed he was being watched. Sticking out his tongue, he wiggled his way free, setting off an alarm. From the vents, Kismet pounced, her blade going right through Booty's jumpsuit and posting him to the wall. "Not so fast, we ain't done with you yet." Tun entered the room and grabbed Booty, dragging him into a separate room where Idiom stood looking out a window. Her view was of Royal City shining in all its luster. She ate grapes and smiled wickedly when she saw Booty. "Is it my meeting with my favorite vigilante already?" she squealed. "You know what they say, time flies when you're having fun. Why go through all this trouble for me, Paige? There's plenty of big-time heroes you could have picked on, but why'd it have to be me?" She thought about it for a moment, giggling before answering. "Why, Booty, you're the life of the party, haven't you guessed it? All of those other super dweebs are too stuck up to do the job right. And boy, do you do the job right. I mean, look at all of this money we've made together. From a back door, the host stepped in carrying 3 duffel bags overflowing with cash. Booty's look was that of confusion as Kismet sliced open one of the bags to let bills flood out onto the rug. Pressing a remote, Idiom played video footage on a projector. Booty watched himself enter a bank and raid the vault. Looking directly into the camera, he threw singles in the air before hopping into a portal. A smug expression crept over his face in real time. Shrugging, he yawned. Of all the things you could have had me do, that was the most unoriginal bit I could have thought of. Idiom squinted her eyes and pressed a button on her remote, switching over to a live news feed covering the story. All over the airways, Booty's name was being slandered. "This is what happens when you give kids too much freedom," one newscaster said monotone. Those words stuck with Booty, but he didn't care. He simply blinked twice, and his hyperpack activated, jets blazing, launching the apparatus through a wall and knocking Ton upside his head to where he dropped Booty altogether. Equipping the jetpack, he reached in his inventory and pulled out a miniature black hole disk to which he threw against the window. Propelled forward, he pushed Idiom through, and they both appeared in a holding cell. A few minutes later, a detective entered the room inquiring about the situation. "I've been framed, officer, but don't worry, I caught the true culprit for you. You can thank me later." Talk about throwing caution to the wind. Idiom pouted, shrinking in her peacoat. "Better luck next time," Booty said, exiting through a portal. Having returned to his apartment, he plopped down on the couch, grabbed a Shibui comic book, flipped it open, and caught up on the journey of Sun. "Now that's a real hero," he awed, admiring how the eternal flame handled business against titans and creatures of myth and legend. "I guess you can say there are levels to this gig." And so Booty Butt Boy would come to do what he does, that being existing in a world where he doesn't truly fit in, but without him, it wouldn't be the same.